Welcome back to Engineer Comrades. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing us for networking, virtualization, and hacking related videos. So without wasting much of time, let's start. So today we are going to discuss about Proxmox. First, we'll see what is Proxmox and what are the prerequisites to install Proxmox. After that, we will prepare our installation media to install Proxmox. Then I will walk you through the installation process of Proxmox. After that, we will create storage for our VMs, and then we'll create VMs and containers. At last, we'll discuss about LXC and Docker containers and how they are different. So let's start. So what is Proxmox? Actually, Proxmox Virtual Environment is an open source server virtualization management platform. It is actually Debian based Linux distribution with a modified Ubuntu LTS kernel and allow deployment and management of virtual machines and containers. So Proxmox out of the box support LXC containers. So it can perform virtual machines and containers out of the box. And also Proxmox is a powerful open source server virtualization platform to manage two virtualization technologies that I have discussed earlier. First one is KVM, which is based for virtual machines, and the second one is LXC, which is used for containers. And for both of the technologies, Proxmox have a single web-based interface. So you can run Proxmox for your home lab, like for hacking lab or virtualization or even networking lab. Proxmox is type 1 hypervisors. And if you don't know about what is type 1 and type 2 hypervisor, please watch my video which I have shared on the I button above, and link is in the description also. As Proxmox is type 1 hypervisor, it is bare metal, or it is also called native hypervisor. It acts as a firmware for VMs. The system can't be used as a workstation. They do have consoles like web UI. From there, you can create virtual machines and containers based on LXC. The clients, or say virtual machines, are accessed through applications like VNC, RDP, or SSH, or you can also access them via web UI. Type 1 hypervisors are headless, and Proxmox is a data center thing. Means usually type 1 hypervisors are used in data centers. It is not used by the end users, but the Proxmox is so lightweight and great hypervisor that you can run on a desktop or say a laptop also. I'm gonna install Proxmox on my old desktop with some old hardware. It works great on low-end devices too, in comparison of its competitor like VMware ESXi, which puts a lot of overhead on your hardware resources. So first we'll visit the proxmox.com and we'll see what are the recommended hardware for Proxmox. Fire up your browser and go to proxmox.com. So here the recommended hardware is mentioned by Proxmox. As you can see, it only needs 2 GB of RAM. So here you can see how less are the resources required by the Proxmox. So let's look at our hardware. So I am gonna install Proxmox on my old desktop. So here you can see the specifications of my old desktop. So it has a CPU which is Q9300, which is a quad core processor. It has a 6 gigs of RAM. I do have a SSD which is 480 GB in size. So do remember one thing, Proxmox doesn't support Wi-Fi connection out of the box. So you must have an Ethernet connections to your system. On my desktop, I am using a Gigabyte G41 motherboard, and in my BIOS, virtualization is enabled. So next, we have to prepare our installation media. So first visit to proxmox.com and download the Proxmox VE installable ISO file. So in this video I am going to use Etcher to make installation media. I will post the links for both Etcher and Rufus in the description box. You can download it from there. So on proxmox.com, go to download section and then go to Proxmox virtual environment. Now click on ISO images, and from here you can download Proxmox VE 6.4 ISO installer. So click on download. So to make our installation media in this video, I'm going to use Etcher. So it's a very simple tool. Just you have to click here. So click flash from a file, and now navigate in your download folders where you have downloaded Proxmox VE 6.4.1 ISO. So I'm going to select this ISO file. So now you have to select a target device. In this case, I'm going to use my USB stick. So I'm going to select my USB device, and now I will click on select one. And now you have to click on flash. I have already prepared my installation media, so I am not going to click on flash here, but you may click on flash and prepare your installation media first. So first go to your BIOS and change the boot sequence. Here I am going to select my first boot device to USB HDD, which is basically the USB key which we have flashed using Etcher. After that, your system will boot through your installation media, and you will be greeted with this screen. Now you have to click on install Proxmox VE, the first one. The installation of Proxmox is pretty straightforward. You have to set a root password, enter your email address, then select your time zone, IP address, and host name. After that, remove your installation media. You may read the end user license agreement. I'm just going to hit next. Now you have to select your storage device. I'm going to select mine and then next. On that screen, you have to mention your country name, your time zone, and the keyboard layout. After that, you have to enter your password and your email address. On this screen, you have to select your management interface, your host name, and your IP address, and the gateway and DNS server. Proxmox will search for DHCP server, and if it find one, then it gonna pick a IP address from the DHCP server. If not, you have to enter IP address manually. And the installation process has been started. It may take up to 5 minutes depending on your hardware specifications. Now finally you can see our installation is successful. So please note down your IP address which we are going to use in our browser to access the Proxmox web UI. So in my case, it is https://192.168.43.34:8006. So Proxmox run on 8006 port. After that, your system will reboot once. So now we're going to launch our web browser and we will navigate to our Proxmox address. So let's do that. So now enter your Proxmox server IP address. In my case, it is 192.168.43.34:8006. So as we are using HTTPS protocol and we don't have any SSL certificate, so you will get a prompt that your connection is not private. So just click on advanced and proceed to your website. So as you can see, we have successfully installed our Proxmox server, and now we are connected to our Proxmox server using the IP address of the Proxmox server. So by default, the username is root, and enter your password which you entered during the installation process. So after logging in, you will see this prompt that no valid subscription. Proxmox is free. It is nothing but it is asking for subscription to have any kind of support from Proxmox team. Usually enterprises use the subscriptions. In our case, we are going to ignore this prompt. Don't worry, your Proxmox is totally free. So now this is the first screen of Proxmox virtual environment. So here you can see a tab is data center. Data center tab may consist of multiple nodes. So Proxmox is capable of running multiple nodes. So here we do have only one node, which is Proxmox, and Proxmox is nothing but the host name of that server. So here you can see we do have two storage, and here you can see we have 93.99 GB of space, from which we have already used almost 5 gigs of space, but we do have a SSD which is 480 GB in size. So how we can use the remaining storage? So here you can see we do have one more storage which is local LVM, and here you can see it has a storage of 323 GB. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna merge the storage. So here we are going to delete the local LVM, and then we will resize our partition and will increase the local storage. If you have multiple drives, then this process is not necessary, as I do have a single hard disk. So I'm going to delete the local LVM and going to expand the size of the local storage. So to delete local LVM, go to data center and then navigate to storage section. Here select local LVM and then click on remove. So we have removed local LVM, but still when you'll check the storage of local storage, so here you can see we still have a 93 gigs of space. So actually we have deleted the partition, but still we haven't expanded our local partition. So we are going to use the shell of Proxmox, and then we are going to put 3 commands to expand our local storage. I will put all the command in the description box, so you can just copy it and use on your servers. So to access this cell, go to your Proxmox node and then click on shell. And here you have to enter the 3 commands. First one is lvremove, and then dev slash pve/data. I'm gonna hit Y. As you can see, the logical volume data successfully removed. Now another command is lvresize. So lvresize -l is plus 100%, and then free and slash dev slash pve/root. So logical volume pve/root is successfully resized. And the last command is resize to fs. So I am going to put the command resize to fs /dev /mapper/pve-root. So now as we have executed all the 3 commands, Let's check our local storage, and now you can see we do have 434 gigabytes of memory. So as now we have prepared our storage, the next section is we are going to create a virtual machine. But first of all, you have to give access to your local storage, that what kind of data it can store. Like it can store ISO images, the VM disk images, or say CTD container templates. You have to give the permissions. To achieve that, go to data center and go to storage, then select your local storage. So from here you can give the access to the local storage to store something like disk image, containers, and all of the ISO images are already selected. So we can store disk image, ISO image, container templates, and containers in this local storage. So now hit OK. And before creating a virtual machine, we have to upload ISO images for the installation media. So go to your local storage, go to ISO image. As you can see, I have already uploaded a Ubuntu desktop ISO image. So you can simply upload an image from clicking here, upload, and then you may select your file. So I am also going to upload a CentOS image to the Proxmox server. So click on upload, and now your ISO file is being uploaded to the Proxmox. So now let's create our first VM. So click on create VM. Here you can see the node is Proxmox, and we have only a single node in our data center, so it is named as Proxmox. Proxmox server identifies its VMs through its ID, not by the name. So Proxmox server will always generate a VM ID for your VMs. So for this VM, I'm going to name it Ubuntu desktop and click on advanced. Here you can check this option to start at boot. It means whenever you'll start your Proxmox server, the virtual machine, this virtual machine is going to be started automatically. So now hit next. In the OS section, you have to select your disk image file for the installation purpose. So here we do have only one storage, which is local, and we have uploaded these two ISOs in our local storage. So I'm going to select Ubuntu, and here you can specify the type of guest OS as well as version of the kernel. So now I'm going to hit next. In the systems tab, I'm going to use the default settings. I'm going to hit next. So here I'm going to give the Ubuntu 30 gigs of size, and I'm going to hit next. For the CPU, I am going to assign 2 cores, and in the memory section, I'm going to assign a 2 gig of memory for this VM. In the network section, you can see by default it uses a bridge mode. It means your VM will be bridged to your Ethernet directly. After that, just recheck your settings and hit finish. In the logs, you can see your VM100 is being created. So here is your first VM. The machine ID is 100, or say the VM ID is 100, and the name is Ubuntu desktop. So I'm going to start this VM. Click on start, and now click on console. So you have successfully started your first VM. And now we are going to install the operating system for this VM. Meanwhile this VM is cooking, we can also explore some more option in Proxmox. Here you can see you can create containers. So just click on create containers. So just create a password for your container machine and hit next. So here you can see the storage is selected to local, but we don't have any template for LXC containers. So first we are going to add some containers. So go to Proxmox, so go to local storage and then container templates. Here you can see these are predefined containers from the Proxmox. So here I am going to use a CentOS 8 container. I'm going to download it. So now downloading is finished. So now let's try to create a container. So click on create container, put your password. Now when you click on template, you can see we do have a template of CentOS 8. I'm going to select that, hit next. I'm going to increase the size to 20 gigs and CPU I'm going to assign 2 cores, and in memory I'm going to use a 512 megabytes. By default the Ethernet adapter is bridged to your physical LAN. I'm going to use DSCP and I'm going to hit next, next, and then I'm going to hit finish. So here you can see in few seconds we have created our container. Here you can see we have created a container which is having an ID of 101. So now I'm going to start my first container. Go to consoles and you can see you have successfully created a LXC container, and you may notice that it is quite fast while deploying and it is quite fast in booting, because LXC containers basically using the same kernel from your host. So I do prefer LXC containers over Dockers. We'll discuss about some key difference between the Docker and the LXC containers. Meanwhile, you can also see that our Ubuntu desktop is up and running. You have to click on install Ubuntu. Let's discuss about LXC containers and the Docker container and why I prefer LXC container over Docker containers. So let's compare LXC versus Docker. LXC is an OS level virtualization technology that allows the creation and running of multiple isolated Linux virtual environments on a single control host. These isolation levels or containers can be used to either sandbox specific applications or to emulate an entirely new host. Whereas Docker has some differences, being the biggest of them, the engine that wrap up application with a self-contained file system instead of a base user space image. The idea is to contain the app and the base image to create the impression that the app is a single process inside the engine. Docker used LXC technology as underlying to communicate with the kernel. A container system making use of LXC containers. So you can build, ship, and run any app anywhere. It's platform independent, and Docker specializes in deploying apps. The key difference is the file system is an abstraction to Docker, while LXC uses file system features directly. Network is also an abstraction, while with LXC you can set up IP addresses and routing configurations more easily. So that's the reason why I like LXC over Docker, because you can set up your IP addresses, you have direct access to the storage, and it actually emulates an entirely new host. Whereas in Docker, you got a netted IP and you have no direct access to the storage. So here are some key differences between LXC and Docker. In data retrieval parameter, LXC does not support data retrieval after it is processed, whereas in Docker, data retrieval is supported. If you talk about usability, LXC is a multi-purpose solution for virtualization, whereas Docker, it is a single purpose solution. LXC is supported only on Linux platform, whereas Docker is platform dependent. LXC provides us full system virtualization, whereas Docker provides application virtualization. If you talk about cloud support, there is no need for cloud storage as Linux provides each feature for LXC containers, whereas in Dockers, we need cloud storage for sizable ecosystem. So that's all about LXC and Docker. So why to use Proxmox or say any hypervisor? Because it better utilizes our hardware resources, and Proxmox is absolutely free. So we're gonna save power. It at the same time it gives us the flexibility to move the VMs on any other physical hardware. So you can recover your VMs, because VMs can be saved as files, and it's a great tool in learning different technologies. So that's all for the today's session, and I hope the session was informative to you, and please consider subscribing our channel and do hit the like button. Thanks for watching.